Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, your child librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to look at the 1996 film, Matilda, based on Roald Dahl's book. So first we're going to look at both stories. Fine. The basic story stays the same, but as with most Roald Dahl books, the film is slightly less, dark. Yeah, check out the book review. Dahl has issues. Check out my introduction to Dahl back when I was doing the George and the Marvelous Medicine thing. If you want to find more weird information about Roald Dahl and how to deal with issues. This one, the book itself and the film obviously is far less dark. There's some less issues, but there's child abuse. That's the main issue with this book and its film. Again, the film is far more light-hearted, because it stars and is directed by Danny DeVito. And his wife, Rhea Perlman, also stars. They star as the Wormwoods, which are Matilda's parents. So in the basic story, you have Matilda. She is born to the Wormwoods. I believe it's Harry, and what on earth is the wife's name? They just call her Mrs. Wormwood. In fact, they don't give the first names in this. So I can't remember what the first names were in the book. But Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, they have a son whose name I can't remember because he's not that important. He's older. They have Matilda. They don't really care that she exists. And she's very, very different. She doesn't want to sit around watching television. She wants to read things. She wants to go to school. Her father is a used car salesman of the absolute utter worst kind. He's the guy who cheats things. Ken's irritating, making noises, hopefully not waking up my toddler. But back to the book. So, yeah, here her father he's a very, very bad car salesman. So they pretty much ignore her. So she reads everything in the house and then figures out that she can walk to the public library and then proceeds to read everything in the children's section by like age 4. And then asked the public librarian there if what she should read next after she's read the entire children's books. So she starts reading things like Charles Dickens and Melville, as she's read Moby Dick, along with various other math books and different things. So Matilda is really, really smart. Her father in the film sells a car to Miss Trunchbull, Agatha Trunchbull. She runs a school. So he finally sends Matilda to school. Only Trunchbull's the headmistress of this school, and she terrorizes people. So you send Matilda to school. She's about 6 or 7 years old. In the book, I think she's like 5. But maybe 5 or 6. She's a little bit older, I think, in the film. And so Matilda finally gets to go to school. Only Trunchbull terrorizes people. So the first day, she watches Trunchbull get mad at a little girl because she has pigtails, and grab her by the pigtails and swing her around and throw her. Yes, that happens in the book too, only it's a little bit darker. And then she is introduced to her teacher, Miss Honey, who is a very, very sweet woman who is very kind to her students, and realizes very, very quickly that Matilda is really, really smart because she can do mathematical sums that are huge in her head. And she tries to get Trunchbull to move her up to grade into a higher class, and Trunchbull's like, no, you can't handle her. So basically, it's like Trunchbull thinks she's trying to get rid of her. And then Matilda starts developing powers. Now, previously, she'd gone to work with her father, and he made the statement that, I think Danny DeVito's, like, you're big, I'm big, you're little, I'm right, you're wrong, and people eventually have to be punished. Not children, people. So she proceeds to punish her father by gluing his hat to his head, and then at one point in time, she puts peroxide in his hair tonic and bleaches his hair. So, yes, this happens in the book, too. So she essentially punishes her father. No, but of course she catches her because they don't think she's actually going to do this. So she's done that to her father, who's again slimy, and the FBI is hanging around outside watching her father, which is not in the book. But let's go back to the film. So she's in school, she's watching this, and like Trunchbull terrorizes people. She eventually terrorizes Matilda because the car that Matilda's father sold her was horrible, because her father basically he turns back, uses an electric drill to turn back the speedometer on things, and use super glue to put on bumpers, and essentially the car that he sold Trunchbull starts falling apart, and she gets mad at Matilda and locks her in what's called the chokey, which is a tiny little corner closet with glass and nails, and locks Matilda in there. Eventually Miss Honey comes in and rescues her and gets her out of there, because Trunchbull teaches a lesson in everybody's class either once a week or once a day. I'm pretty sure it's once a week. It might be once a day in the book. But again, so they have the first class with Trunchbull. Matilda's there, and she throws a little boy out the window. Now, at this point, Matilda starts developing powers, slightly prior to this. And she's realizing she's able to move things with her mind, and she has a little dance scene in her parents' house, because her mother's not home. Her mother goes and plays bingo, dad goes to work. And so she's flying things around, she's dancing around the house. So she realized she has these powers. So the other thing that she learns is one day she walks home with Miss Honey. And Miss Honey is actually Trunchbull's niece. And Trunchbull had terrorized her, and she suspects killed her father. Her mother had died when she was very young, and then her father died when she was about 7, and she suspects that Trunchbull killed her in order to take the house and the money. And then Miss Honey eventually rents a little cottage and gets away from the Trunchbull, only she's still teaching at Trunchbull Hall, which is not explained in the film. It's explained in the book. It's a lot darker. But we'll get to that. So basically Trunchbull is living in Miss Honey's house. It's the house that she grew up in. It technically belongs to her. So what Matilda does is Matilda goes and punishes Trunchbull. She makes Trunchbull terrified just a little bit, and she steals back a doll that had belonged to Miss Honey called the Doll, which according to the IMDb page is actually after one of the producers, which is Roald Dahl's widow, his second wife. And she was one of the producers. Her name was Lucy Dahl. So she steals the doll back, gives it back to Miss Honey. And then now she has these powers, so she decides to terrorize Trunchbull to make her go away. So she gets some information from Miss Honey, basically what Miss Honey's father called her, which was his, I think, Bumblebee. And Miss Trunchbull's first name. And so after Trunchbull first throws a little boy out the window, she's able to rescue him and bring him back, so he ends up flying. And then she essentially has basically fixed the room, because they always have to hide all their drawings and stuff. They're normal things that would be in a small children's classroom and make it look bland. And she had done this prior because Trunchbull was coming in, because she's pissed off because she'd been terrorized that night. And so Trunchbull comes in, she throws a boy out a window because he got smart with her. She's trying to terrorize Matilda, but then Matilda uses her powers to write a message on the chalkboard pretending to be Miss Honey's father, scares the crap out of an extremely suspicious Trunchbull, and she leaves. And a few other things happen prior to this. One of Trunchbull's terrorizing things was she forces a young boy to eat an entire thing of cake, which is a well-known scene where he's basically cheered on to eat this cake, and Trunchbull's pissed when he actually does it. He eats an entire chocolate cake. It's mentioned, if I do an entire book review on Roald Dahl's Revolting Recipes. There's a recipe for the cake in that book if you're interested. And there's a few other little things besides Matilda kind of getting the best of the FBI when they're looking at her father, and her Miss Honey trying to drop off advanced books to Matilda, and her parents getting pissed off. They're trying to force her to watch television, and it explodes because she's angry. Her father destroying a library book. So Whittaker's like, what the heck are you doing at the library? There's a couple other things. The film is lighthearted and fun. I would highly recommend it. I mean, it stars Danny DeVito and his wife, Rhea Perlman. Who's the actress? The actress who plays Miss Honey is Elizabeth Davids. I'm going to see what else she's been in really quickly. Besides Bear Horror films. Let's see. Besides Matilda, apparently she was in Schindler's List. That's not exactly a thing. She's been in a few other things. She's kind of a well-known actress. And Mara Wilson, who plays Matilda. So, and then let's see, you have the FBI agents. One of them is Paul Rubens. So if you're my generation, in your 30s, or you're familiar with Pee Wee Herman. So that's Paul Rubens. So he's one of the FBI agents. The other one is Tracy Walter, who is let's see, what else has he been in? He's kind of a scruffy looking guy. Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. So he's another well-known actor. Apparently he was in Criminal Minds at one point in time. But yeah, it's interesting. I enjoy this film a lot. It's fun. It's lighthearted. Bit of magic. Happy ending. What really happens at the end is after Trunchbull runs away, Miss Honey is made the head of the school. And they have to add an upper school because I think it only goes up to like 6th grade at this point. So it has to finish off because nobody wants to leave because now she's in charge. She gets her house back. Matilda spends a whole bunch of time with her. And then essentially her mother wins a bunch of money with the lotto. And then they're running away because the FBI is coming onto them for, the crappy car thing. And Matilda has the papers that allow her to be adopted. She apparently had them since she was tall enough to Xerox and has her parents sign them. And they pretty much, like, mother's like, you're my only daughter. I've never understood you. Give me a pen. And her mother signs them, then convinces dad to sign them. And then they get in the car and get away. So, I think Zinnia, that's what it is. It's Harry and Zinnia. They get away. So her parents get away and she's adopted by Miss Honey and lives happily ever after and keeping her powers. So let's go to the comparisons here. The book is so much darker. It's so much darker. Matilda's father is knowingly part of a chop shop. So if you're aware of what that is in the criminal world, it's essentially people steal cars. He takes them apart. And occasionally sells the parts or has other cars put together. Essentially, he's involved in basically car theft. And he has been sending money away to Spain. And the entire village was very much aware of what was going on. They were just kind of waiting until they had enough stuff on them. And they run away to Spain. In the film, they say they're running away to Guam, and it's not made quite clear that he's involved in stealing cars. It's kind of glossed over. So, and then they run away. So, that's different. Again, it's very, very dark. And Miss Honey is it's a small village, so Miss Honey is aware what her father's up to. And the school is not, why Trunchbull runs it, it's not hers. In the film, it's considered her school. In the book, it's just the village school. And her parents just hadn't sent her to school yet. They waited like a year or so longer. So it's just the village school. And Miss Honey does not become head of the school. You have a male, second head teacher, and he takes over. Trunchbull disappears. And she doesn't come to school the next day. Because in the film, there's a whole chasing out scene where the school basically does a giant food fight and chases Trunchbull out of the school. And she disappears. In the book, basically, she just runs out and doesn't come back the next day. And the vice principal goes to, or the second head teacher goes to the school, goes to her house, and basically finds she's left. The door is open and everything. And a lawyer calls Miss Honey, says, "Oh, this will has been found, so everything's yours, along with a bunch of money that was still there." So that's what happens in the film. In the book, in the film, it's kind of Trunchbull is chased off and never seen again, and Miss Honey gets her house back, and it's very, very simple. No lawyers involved. So they they gloss over that. They also gloss over the child abuse. Okay, so this gets into the dark place when it comes to Miss Honey. So Trunchbull essentially turns Miss Honey into her slave as a child. She's like 7 years old when Trunchbull probably kills her father. And essentially she beats her and forces her into submission. And turns her, makes her cook, makes her clean, makes her absolute utter servant. And she's absolutely utterly terrified. And she has no backbone whatsoever. And when she finishes school, Trunchbull, in order to keep control over her, and basically says, "You owe me a bunch of money for looking after you." So she allows her to go to a teaching school within driving distance, like 40 miles away or something, or 40 minutes away. So she had to stay in that house and take care of Trunchbull and be her personal servant. And then once she gets her teaching degree, Trunchbull writes a letter to basically the education body that pays them. This is England, so I'm not familiar with their schooling system. And essentially convinces them to pay Trunchbull Miss Honey's salary, and she gives her a small amount of money a week. And what Honey ends up doing is she convinces some farmer to rent her a shack, and she lives on absolutely, utterly nothing, like literally bread and maybe tea and a little bit of rent, and she has to go out to a well. She doesn't have running water. And all her money is still going to Trunchbull. So that is her life. So it is very, very different. The film glosses over this entirely. It does imply that Trunchbull broke her arm once, but that's as much as it goes into. It's implied that she's abused, but it's not gone into detail like it is in the book, where it really is. Miss Honey explains to Matilda the horror that she suffered and the life that she lives, and how Trunchbull still completely, utterly controls her because she has all her money. And so it's a massive darkness here that you do not see in this light film. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. They do talk about how Trunchbull gets away with it because she does terrorize the kids. I mean, little girl who's thrown. Yes, it does happen, but it's implied the little girl, their parents will never believe them. It's Trunchbull goes far enough that parents will never believe them, and she's very sweet she terrorizes the parents too. So it's implied the little girl who got thrown with her pigtails will cut off her hair. So, and boys thrown out the window, just their parents will never believe them that this is happening because Trunchbull goes all the way. You do have the character of Hortensia, who's in the film, who's actually a skinny girl. Implies she's been in the chokey once. In the book, she's worse. I think she's chubbier. And she intentionally goads Trunchbull. So she's been in the chokey like 3 times, once almost all day, because she goads Trunchbull. I think she's also fat in the books. So it's far, far darker in the book as opposed to the film, where things are far more light-hearted and fun and kind of goofy and not quite terrorizing. Because Roald Dahl should be a horror writer, should have been a horror writer and not be writing children's books. Yeah, the book is it's just so dark. The film is really fun. There's a completely different tone. Completely different tone. The film is this lighthearted fun. This little girl gets powers and is able to fly things around and helps people out and terrorizes this crony old woman, who's known for being in the Olympics. That's something they put in the film, where she's known for like the shot put in the javelin and stuff like that. That is not in the book. Trunchbull is just evil in the book. She has no character. Dahl was not good at, it was pure evil. There was no character development at all. And Matilda loses her powers in the book. Once she's being challenged, like she's moved up in classes, and she's learning more, she loses her powers completely. In the film, it's kind of, no, she still has them. She's able to call a book Moby Dick to her at the end, which is fun. Again, I like the film better. The book is just dark. It's dark and it's depressing, even though it still has that kind of happy ending. Because, again, her parents still get away. She still ends up living with Miss Honey. But, again, it's so much darker throughout. You get all this abuse stuff. And you get the implications that Trunchbull is just going to get rid of things. She gets away with so much. I mean, the torture of Miss Honey is bad. I mean, it's described in detail in the book, and it's just not in the film, thank God. But it's a back to the film, it's a very, very fun film. Again, highly recommend it. Don't necessarily recommend the book, because again, Roald Dahl is dark, and you can check out my book review. I really do love this film. It's very, very fun. It's very upbeat. It has no educational value whatsoever. It's one of those films that you could put in with your young kids, possibly even your teenagers would find this entertaining. So, because it's fun and it's light and has Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman, you can't really hate them. Also, I think in the book her parents are fat, which is not uncommon for Roald Dahl. He's big on the fat shaming. Dahl's big on the fat shaming. So, I don't know. I think Trunchbull might be fat too. Yes, he's very, very big on the fat shaming. That is not in this film. Again, you don't really... It's kind of funny that Matilda's parents get away despite their nastiness. But again, it's in a comedic form because, once again, it's Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman. They are well-known comic actors. They are not evil. When I was looking at the IMDb page, it said that Harry Wormwood possibly would have been played by Chevy Chase. Yeah, that would have been a different tone. And you could hate Chevy Chase, because you should. He's a horrible human being. People don't like Chevy Chase because he's a dick. But you can't really hate Danny DeVito, because he's Danny DeVito and he's done such other entertaining films. And then, of course, you have the FBI agents, which are just kind of goofy, because one of them, of course, is Pee Wee Herman, who's still very funny. And he's very, very funny in this film because they're playing it straight. And they're playing the stereotypical, slightly offbeat, slightly stupid FBI agents that Matilda kind of gets the best of, and again, her parents get away. And it's funny, and it's entertaining, and it's something you could throw in and watch with kids pretty much of any age. This is one of those, I think it's like PG, it might be G. Where on earth is the rating? It's PG. So, and why is it PG? Oh, you're a child. Let's see. Why on earth is this considered G? Parents Guide. PG for elements of exaggerated meanness and ridicule for some mild language. So, no sex and nudity, no, let's see. Violence and gore, mild. Let's see. Woman grabs another woman by the arm and threatens to break her arm like she said she did when she was a child. Woman visibly kicks a cat. Yeah, Trunchbull. And can be seen flying through the air before running away. Flashback of Trunchbull shown throwing a boy out of an upstairs window. Even though it's mentioned that he lived. Let's see. Girl being thrown by pigtails over a spiked fence. Let's see. Woman throws boy out of a second-story window. Woman throws darts at pictures of students on a dartboard. Yeah, again with the whole Olympics thing. That's not in the book. And let's see. Woman frequently shown chasing, threatening, or grabbing children. Yeah, that was Trunchbull. Children throw food at a woman. That's the end of the book. And then Miss Honey tells Matilda the story of how her girl's mother died and her aunt moved in and helped her be raised by her father. And then the aunt was mean and abused the girl. Again, they don't go into detail. Lots of nasty name calling. Yeah, that's pretty common. Let's see. No alcohol. A man and a woman are shown drinking beer. Matilda's teacher is offered beer, but denies it. This is when Honey comes over to give Matilda books. Let's see. Fainting and frightening and intense scenes. Let's see. Boy is upended by Miss Trunchbull and dropped on the floor. Yeah, she dropped something on her head. Trunchbull kicking a cat. Trunchbull forces a fat kid to eat food. Yes, that's in both. It's very gross and unsettling. Trunchbull confronts, terrorizes, and bullies students. Again, kind of the point of the book. Trunchbull locks children in a chokey, which resembles a coffin and is tall enough to stand in, and nails are sticking out of the door, and steam is pouring out of things, and it's terrifying. Yeah. Let's see. When child eats 2 M&Ms in class, Trunchbull forces them to spit them out and then throws him out a window. He is unharmed. And when Trunchbull discovers Matilda and Honey in her house, she goes on a violent rampage using a ball and chain to try to find them. Oh, yes, they sneak. That's the other thing that I forgot. Miss Honey and Matilda sneak into the house to get the doll back. I thought, or no, for some reason they sneak into the house and they have to get out. They get out again before Trunchbull catches them. So, and then Matilda comes back that night to get the doll. And then they chase Matilda, Trunchbull out the next day. So again, the film is full of fun antics. It's a little bit of suspense, but complete happy ending, very goofy. The book is so dark. It's just dark. Because it's Dahl. And Roald Dahl really, 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 and I keep saying this every time I review one of his books or one of the films based on his book. This man should have been writing children's horror. He should not have been writing quirky children's books. He should have been writing adult horror films or horror books. He would have been better at it, and his books are just dark and creepy because this man was violently abused as a child in British boarding schools. Mental health problems with Roald Dahl. So, let's go back to the film. So that's really it for this review. Highly recommend the film. The book and the film have completely different tones. Happy-go-lucky, goofy film. Oh, so dark book. Happy ending, but still oh so dark because Dahl. And again, happy, uplifting film because Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman and Mara Wilson, who, as a side note, her mother was dying during the shooting of this, and she became very close with Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman, and found out years later that DeVito showed her mother before she died a rough cut of the film, because and the film is dedicated to Wilson's mother, who died, I think, of breast cancer or something. So that's a little heartwarming thing about the film, as opposed to, the extremely dark book. So that is it for this review. Highly recommend this film. Check out my book review for it. This is one of several Roald Dahl books I've covered. I've done Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's very, very strange counterpart. Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. The 2 films on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. George's Marvelous Medicine, which was the first thing I covered, and James and the Giant Peach, both the book and the film. I will probably cover more because for some reason he's a classic children's author despite, issues. Lots of issues. So, if you like this review, check out my book review. You'll get more into details on why this is a very screwed up book. I cover a bunch of other stuff, obviously not just Roald Dahl. He's not one of my favorites. I cover a variety of children's picture books. I cover some fantasy stuff. I cover various children's films, some teen films, a sprinkling of travel videos. and some secular, aka non-religious homeschooling videos thrown in there. So be sure to check out my channel, like and subscribe, and see what I've got to offer. Thank you.